Hi Fiona. Okay, sweetheart. Now, I've got my MC10000 machine version 3 in my machine filter, and I've got my hoop B140 by 200. I could have my hoop 126 by 110 because it'll fit. And I want to make a design that's going to fit in a 200 by 200 millimeter hoop. So the first thing I did was I created myself, let me hide this image, a box with the run line tool that measured 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. I made a small box, and then I went into dimensions and I increased it to 100 by 100 millimeters. Then when I had done that, I drew a diagonal line from corner to corner. That gives me a visual. Two of these now are there to give me a visual on the size of my design. So then I brought in my image and it came in huge. So I sized it down using dimensions to fit 100 millimeters by 100 millimeters. And I'm only going to digitize what's in this triangle here. So I go and I pick up my run line tool. Now I've got my guidelines in green. I'm digitizing in red. So I'm going to start up here, and I'll blow this up so as you can see. It's a bit pixelated because when I use my snippet tool it saves it as a JPEG. Okay, I drop a node directly on my guideline, and then I simply click around my shape. Now, if I don't want a connection line to run between this thing and the next bit, I have to provide a path for branching to take. So I drop a line down, and then that allows me to come up to here. Come on, get in there. My hands are... Well, I'm not going to tell you again because you all know my hands are stiff. And I'm an incredibly slow digitizer. Now, I take that just as far as there. I then start my next shape on the green line, because that's where I want my two parts to my design to marry. And my digitizing line is crossing straight across my digitizing maze. And I bring, oops, I came offline. I come down to this point, but I don't want to drop it onto my green line. So I leave it raised a bit till I get to this point, and then I drop it into the center there. I then give my branching tool an opportunity to make a return line to make this shape, because I must provide somewhere for it to run. And if we look at the top of this, at some point these marry into this line. I am going to bring my line from here, off that red line. I'm going to dip it in so it just barely touches the green line, and then continue up and do this shape, because branching needs to be able to follow a route, and you have to provide it with the junctions to follow. Otherwise, you end up getting several reruns over a line of stitching, and that's not what you want. So let's just run these shapes around, and I can finish that one there. Now the thing with branching is it makes you very idle about pathing. Now I can bring this shape from here, make certain that I connect in some way with that row of stitching, and drop this node on that green line. But then that gives me a little problem. I'm going to have a disconnected shape in the center, and I don't want any disconnected shapes. That's the one thing I am trying to avoid. So I think what I'll do is I'll take a point from here, and I'm going to make a slightly new shape. And now I can drop that onto the green line. And I think I might have pulled that round a little bit too far, but never mind. Now I've got to consider this line and this line. I don't want those hanging in mid-space either. So I start this one here, and I just give it a curved bottom. And I drop the top of this one up onto that green line, about there. That will do. Now I've got this little boogaloo. So where do I want to run him from? Well, if you see on this side, it actually continues out to the outside line. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run, and I'll bring it from in here because it's easier for me to see. I'll run my curve, and I'll drop it onto the red line. Then I'm going to curve it up and bring it back onto the red line to come back out here and drop this up onto the green line. So that's 2 points where it can escape into this line, and then I just run my line down like that and click on that. So let's pull back and see what we've got and hide the image. There we go. There's my shape. I highlight the red. I don't want the green, only the red. I go into Edit and I say Group. I then go back into Edit, and I'll do it in Edit rather than use my keyboard, and tell it Duplicate. Now this is where I discover if I've made a huge boo-boo or not. And I tell it flip horizontally, and then click into that to get my rotate handles. And those little empty boxes. I hover over one till I get the arrows, and then I turn it. And it always does it to me. It drops it off the end of the screen. Right. Well, there's something not quite right here. So I want to move that little circle down to this point here, because it will rotate around that circle. And then I want to bring those shapes up until they meet. Now let's go in and take a good look at this. That's met properly. That's met properly. That's met properly. This is on the green line. These are not quite married together, and that could cause branching a problem. I think this one's still highlighted. Yes. Edit, Ungroup. And then I click on this one. Edit, Ungroup. And then I click on this curved line, and I go to Object Reshape, and I move my start point, and I bring that down, put my start point back, And I click on this one and I move my start point out of the way and I bring that one down. I've got to provide branching with somewhere where it can run. Branching is wonderful, but if you don't give it a path to follow, it'll make its own. That's when you end up with lots and lots of little connections that you didn't expect and you don't want. And I also noticed, it's this line, right. These didn't quite marry, and I want them to marry. I just moved that one down to meet it. So let's tell that stop, move out a bit, and highlight the red, go into edit, tell it all group.